Thanks for joining us today. This is Shannen at Cascade Pet Camp.
And Dr. Dana from Cascade Pet Camp. Today,
What are we talking about today, Dana?
We get asked a lot about excessive barking, and you and I sometimes disagree about this.
Yeah,
it's a hot topic. So I think we should kind of talk about excessive barking. Lord knows I live with it.
Sure. So excessive barking, like many things with dogs, is why is it happening? The one, I've said this many times, probably even in this venue, dogs are amazing because they're very honest. Yeah. And I will say this to owners, if they are barking excessively, and your definition of excessive is very different than mine.
I feel very cold.
3
out,
barks,
Shannen.
and that is excessive for me. Dana lives with very vocal dogs.
And a husband who doesn't like it.
But back to topic. Why are they barking? They're generally barking because they need something, in my opinion. So are they barking because they're anxious? Are they frustrated? Are they scared? Are they brat barking you, which also means they need something, right? Or is it just in the breed? You know, choosing your breed, legitimately choosing a breed that is very vocal naturally, that comes naturally to them, for lack of a better description. And if you don't want to live with that, then do your research.
Totally. And I think, I have lived with for many years now dogs that alert bark. They tell us that something has changed in the environment. That could be...
They sport bark.
That could be as simple as a leaf has fallen from a tree and I need to let you know at a high volume that a leaf has fallen from the tree. Or it could be that the UPS man has arrived or any of those things. And we hear that a lot from clients that, my dog is fine until the delivery person, fill in the blank, from UPS to USPS to DoorDash to, whoever might be coming to their house. And then all heck breaks loose. And it takes them 10 minutes to get everyone back together.
Well, let's pause. Let's break it down then. Frequently, I have said to clients or everybody who wants to hear me, that
we all want to hear you.
Delivery people are a great sport for dogs. And if you simply look at why that happens, it's the ultimate for the dog, because whether it is your postal service or pizza delivery or whatever they are not there to camp out. They run up onto your property, ring the doorbell or something else that cues the dog, deliver
or
what they
a barrier,
need to deliver,
like your gate or your door.
Or a barrier, and then they run away and leave, perceived by the dog. So the dog just won. So it's very fulfilling and it's very constantly rewarding that I won. I just made the postal man run away. He went away from me, so I'm going to continue to do that. So that's the kind of barking that I think redirection works really well.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I have tried more
harsh,
aggressive solutions, and reprimanding my dog and whatnot. And it ends up sounding like you're joining in most of the time, and your timing is off. And for most clients, their timing is off anyway. It's not, you're catching it when the dog is already at a 7, 8, or 9, not when it's way down here and arousal, as we'll talk about, is pretty low. So one way that we've been really successful in redirecting dogs is thank you, that's enough, and getting the dog to redirect with scatter bomb of food or just, claiming your space, many other techniques that you can try depending on the dog, and we could talk about further. So that's sort of the people coming up to your house and leaving sort of barking.
Yeah, and 2 of those things have worked really well for me. One is I have very alert dogs. Going to wherever they're barking and acknowledging that they're barking at something and saying thank you, that's enough. I know it sounds weird to some people, but the thank you actually indicates to the dog, I have heard what you are telling me and I am taking control of the situation now.
That'll do, donkey.
That'll do. That's actually been super successful for me, because then it progresses eventually to, I don't have to go to the window. I can just acknowledge from the kitchen that they've told me something has changed, that I've acknowledged that they've told me that, and that I'm taking control of the situation and they can stop barking. The other thing that I think people get really confused about is when we tell people to scatter food on the ground when dogs are barking at things out the window. So I just want to be really clear for a second. If your dog is barking at something out the window or away from you, or said another way, they are not looking at you, the human or the handler, as they are barking, and you throw food on the ground, you are not reinforcing the barking. You are reinforcing the ability of that dog to redirect onto something else, the food scattered on the ground. Because the impetus to start the barking, the reason they started barking was not to get you to scatter food on the ground. The reason they started barking at the UPS man was to get the UPS man to go away. And the UPS man went away, and so they won. If you scatter food on the ground, you're not reinforcing the UPS man going away.
Or you are, if you can say, get their attention and say, thank you, that'll do. And then they're also simultaneously getting rewarded for that.
So I think just to be really clear, because we're going to go on to what I have successfully trained very well in my dogs of brat barking or demand barking or what else do we call it sometimes?
Something we can't say here.
Yes. So if your dog is looking at you, the handler, and barking, and typically it is a single
brat bark, sass bark.
It is a single bark or one or two barks, and then looking at you with a pause, and then one or two barks, and then looking at you with a pause. That is demand barking. They are effectively saying, I need more. If you feed that, or in my case, what I did for one of my dogs, if I throw the stick then, or throw the ball then, you are reinforcing that barking. So it's a very different scenario for the dog, because in that case, they're asking you to do something and you did it. Versus barking away at the world, they're not asking for a treat at that moment. So redirecting them with food is not reinforcing. So you and I have historically, although I will admit, listeners, that I have gone to Shannon's side a lot more. Historically, we have dealt with
listeners.
I have gone to your side of dealing with brat barking, but how do you deal with sass or brat or demand barking?
Well, it does depend on the animal that is in front of me sometimes, but for the most part, I try to set a chain of tasks for the dog that can't be followed quickly, meaning I'm not going to ask him to do one trick or task or body position and then feed them they're going to do 3 or 4 in varying chains. So I might ask them to target my hand, lie down, spin, back up, and then I will reward for that. And so it's not a chain that they're going to follow and then do all those behaviors and then brat back at me. Do you see where I'm going with that? So I have them do something because they need something. That is definitely, I will die on this hill. If your dog is interacting with you and brat barking at you, my God, use that attention. That's, in some respects, that's great. Yeah. But you want it on your own terms, right? You don't want to create a monster, but they need something. They need their brain worked, usually, in my opinion. So throw in some, a few tricks, ask them to do something else that maybe, you've been working on, see if they want to volunteer some behaviors, use that time to shape some behaviors. Or I also love the removal technique. So if this is happening in my home or someplace where it's easy for me, I do not reprimand the dog. I'm like, oh, bummer, you need a break. And in a kind way, they are either removed from the room, they're put outside, they're put in their crate in a nice way again, and I give them a few minutes and then bring them back and see if they want to work with. Because for some of the dogs, removing them just takes the air out of their sails for a second in a kind way, and then they can come back and see if they want to work. Yeah,
and I think you and I talk a lot about critically looking at our dog's needs and whether we've met them that day. And so if you are listening and you're like, but I'm thinking of a specific client of ours that has gone through this, but I've run the dog 12 miles and I've done all these things with the dog, and as soon as we have company over,
exercise
things, and as soon as company comes over,
then they tricks.
Then they start brat barking. So if there's a few things, if all you've done is physical exercise for your dog, they probably need some brain work, and that could be as simple as tricks for treats, which could be sit and down and spin like you were talking about. It could be nose work, which we are huge fans of. But your dogs don't just need physical exercise. Ask me how I know. So I think that's one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is, let's say you critically look at your day and you said, yeah, okay, I did 15 to 45 minutes of brain activity spread out throughout the day. They got a 30+ minute exercise session. And I really feel like I've met my dog's needs. Then absolutely removing them again.
Maybe they're tired.
Yeah. Removing them again kindly and patiently can actually teach them that doesn't lead to a reward. It doesn't necessarily lead to punishment. You can even put them in their crate with a chewy, but it's not getting them what they want.
Which is why I don't like obsessive compulsive type engagements with dogs, like excessive ball playing, frisbee playing, things like that.
It builds OCD. Mm-hmm. The other piece of it to touch on, because I do have dogs that are inherently a bit more vocal, and we work hard on reining that in. There is absolutely a genetic component, and so if you don't want a vocal dog, I would not recommend getting a Chihuahua. I would not recommend getting any of the small herding breeds, because they move their livestock
or the big herding breeds.
Well, but your dogs, being larger herding dogs, tend to not recreationally bark in quite the same way that mine often will.
I'm thinking, German Shepherds.
Oh, sure. So, that goes back to, if you've not seen it, choosing the dog that fits your lifestyle. There are just some dogs that are going to resort to barking sooner, at a higher volume and more frequent than others, because of who they are and what we have selected. And that goes for breed mixes too. In general, big, broad brushstrokes. In general, smaller dogs are going to use their voice because that is the presence that they put out into the world. Larger dogs may use their voice a little bit more sparingly, because they have a big presence in the world. So excessive barking isn't just one topic. It's teasing out why they are barking, what's leading to it, and then what techniques work for your dog.
And arousal and other drives and anxiety, because we see a lot of anxiety with our pet dogs.
Yeah, so we had the question on Facebook about somebody who riding in their car, the dog would bark a lot and pant a lot and kind of become over aroused. So,
and it didn't settle. It actually got worse.
Couldn't settle. So that's going to be on this topic and maybe bleed us into another. But how would you deal with that situation in a traveling situation when your dog is in the car and they're barking at other dogs, people, bikes, cars?
Well, I'm a zealot for crates in a car. They are just safer for no other reason. It's much safer for you as a driver and for your dog to have your dog crated in your car. So I always suggest that, if your dog is riding loose in the car or just in a seatbelt, then maybe a crate would be a better option, for them to have lower visibility and, lower anxiety, maybe lower arousal. If that doesn't work for you or it doesn't work for the dog, that goes back to some more brain work and some other training techniques before you even get in the car.
And it is, I think, in our area of the world and potentially everywhere, most people when they think about getting a dog, they think about being able to take that dog to multiple locations, or at least several locations, and have good interactions with that dog. So you and I, we've kind of talked around it several times in different ways, but if your dog is unable to manage themselves and their arousal level in the car, they don't get to go in the car until you can either have somebody else in the car with you to work on it right then and there, or until they're better. Because the more they practice those behaviors, and again, that's barking in the car, loose leash walking, the more they practice the behavior you don't want them to do, the stronger it becomes. Right. So you and I both are kind of evangelists for putting dogs in crates and cars for safety reasons. We do dog sports, so it allows us to keep the cars open and ventilated so that the dogs can
and managing one dog at a time.
And managing one dog at a time, which we both have multiple dogs. So all of those reasons. It also, dogs' visual, super nerd moment. Dogs' visual acuity is different than ours. So if we're driving in a car at a certain speed, it can actually be pretty visually disturbing to some dogs. They don't see the surrounding landscape the same way we do. For some dogs, it can kind of look like almost like a strobe light effect, which if you've ever, I know in all your rave time, Shannon.
Yeah, big partier.
So that is something else to think about. Or they could be getting car sick, or the noise of the car could be alarming, or the vibration of the car could be alarming. So parsing out exactly what causes the dog to go over the top. But
I'm going to interrupt you real quick there. A lot of dogs, including one of my own, which I worked on really hard till he died, was the anticipation of we're going to go do something fun. And barking in the car and just getting so worked up. And then what do you do when you get there? Which you know who you are. I love you, my clients. Where you get to the spit because you insist on going there, and your dog's crazy in the car. So you get there and you cannot take it anymore. So you just open the door and let them run. So they just got the ultimate reward for doing that. Which what you really need to do is drive to the spit, sit there, ask them to settle, and then drive away. And then wait the time it takes to wait them out, or work with them, or they get out of the car on a leash and you work with them and they settle and they wait and they do some other brain games, and then they get back in the car and you go home. Or, any sort of structure to that to break that cycle, because that's just not the behavior that you want to feed into if you don't like the barking in the car. So the question from Side Stage was, do you have to move in the car? No, if depending on what you're working on in the car, most behaviors of barking in the car and being reactive or aggressive or whatever is because they're seeing bicyclists, they're seeing other dogs, or they're seeing things. So yes, the movement, you need to work on it while that's happening. But some dogs just don't want to get in the car, or some dogs are just excited the minute they get in the car. No, you don't even have to leave your driveway. Work on those behaviors right there.
Or if you're solo and your dog does only lose it when a biker goes by or another car goes by, great. Drive by yourself to a grocery store parking lot, or by the kids' playground, or by a good bike trail. Park yourself and sit in the back with your dog and work on that
calm behavior.
Yeah, the calm behavior while you're parked. That can be a way to kind of parse down the behavior of driving and being overstimulated as well. The other thought I had on excessive barking, or other reason why it sometimes happens, is out of fear or anxiety, or whatever we want to label that emotion, we will often see stress excessive barking. And so if you are attached to the dog at the time that is happening, if you've seen much from us, we will often say give them space and do it quickly. So space and speed. So you need to give them whatever space they need until they can reorient their attention to you. That might be 10 feet from the scary thing. It might be 50 feet from the scary thing. It might be a half a mile away. It is what it is, and your dog chooses that. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not convenient for the person attached to the leash. But if your dog is barking because they're afraid, it is about getting far enough away and then reorienting their brain to you and
reintroducing, the object of the person or the thing as well. But yeah.
So it's, like a lot of these things, the why that it happens is so much more important than the fact that it happens. So, your take home messages, if it's, at a delivery person or something out in the world, redirecting them and getting them their attention back on you with food or telling them that, you have the situation. If it's brat barking, you can remove them or actually critically look at your day and say, you're right, I have not met your needs, and do some tricks or treats for them. If it's fear, it's, you got to get them far enough away so that they can pay attention and they lower that stress level. And there's a lot of nuance within each of those categories that if you need help with, we can certainly help you here at Cascade Pet Camp.
If excessive barking is what you're dealing with your pet, hopefully it's a dog.
What if it's my husband?
My horse is barking. If excessive barking is what you're struggling with your dog, we are here to help you find the cause and the solution. So check us out on cascadepetcamp.com or check us out on social media.